President Albert Chambers stood before the hastily assembled Western Alliance Council, his face etched with determination. The chamber, once a symbol of Earth's unity, now felt cramped and tense with the weight of recent events. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chambers began, his voice steady despite the exhaustion evident in his eyes, "we face the greatest challenge in human history. The Busnar have dealt us a devastating blow, but we will not falter. We will rebuild, we will meet their demands, and we will find a way to secure our future among the stars." As murmurs of agreement rippled through the room, Admiral Victoria Hayes stepped forward, activating a holographic display of the solar system. The newly appointed head of Earth's combined space forces carried herself with a grim resolve, the loss of her predecessor, General Hawthorne, still fresh in everyone's minds. "Thanks to our Loxus allies, we have 4 light freighters at our disposal," Hayes explained, her voice carrying the weight of command. "We've designated them for specific missions crucial to our survival and recovery efforts." The display zoomed in on Earth orbit, highlighting a sleek, alien vessel. "First, we have the Hope, captained by John Smith. Their mission is to salvage what we can from our lunar installations, both orbital and surface. The Hope will be joined by all near-Earth assets. The lunar colony will serve as necessary mining station, and the lunar orbital station again will be a manufacturing point in space. With all our near-orbit assets aimed at this problem, this is our most aggressive project," Hayes continued, the display shifting to Mars. "The Phoenix, under Captain Robert Johnson, will perform a similar mission at our Martian outposts. We are hoping there is something to salvage at Mars both in orbit and on the ground. The Phoenix will carry some 3D printers and is significantly faster than our previous ships. We believe this will at least get our colony rebuilt and with a little luck allow us to re-establish at least an orbital platform to be built onto in the future to have a second manufacturing point in space." The Admiral nodded, then pointed to a representation of the asteroid belt. "The Prospector, led by Captain William Brown, will explore the belt for viable mining options. We need resources, and we need them fast. It is hoped we can find some prize asteroids and break them up or bring them back home with this ship. With any luck they can go to either orbital manufacturing point for processing, time will tell." Finally, Hayes highlighted a ship moving away from the solar system. "Lastly, we have the Defiant. Captain Michael Davis will lead a mission to gather intelligence and potentially find new allies. The Loxus and Molnari have given us a map of known wormholes and other alien races as well as a map of known Busnar-influenced space. We hope that the Defiant and the Audacity, which is already on such a mission, will discover more allies for trade or technology." The President cleared his throat. "From a surprisingly new direction we have an update from the scientist at Area 51. Doctor, what's the status of our stealth technology?" Reyes' eyes lit up with a mix of excitement and worry. "We're making progress, Mr. President. The prototype is being tested. We are hoping with a few more tests we will be able to start production on a coating that will help make our spacecraft as stealthy as our stealth fighter program has proven to be." As the meeting adjourned, the various teams rushed to their stations. The clock was ticking, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Aboard the Hope, Captain John Smith stared out at the approaching lunar surface, his heart heavy with the devastation before him. Where once stood humanity's first extraterrestrial colony, now lay a field of debris and shattered dreams. "Captain," called out Navigator Emma Wilson, "we are in stationary orbit over the primary debris field." Smith nodded, turning to his engineer. "Anderson, prep the salvage drone lander. Send it." Engineer Thomas Anderson's fingers flew over his console. "Drone lander sent, Captain." Smith nodded, turning to his engineer. "Anderson, prep the new 3D printer units. Send it." Engineer Thomas Anderson's fingers flew over his console. "New 3D printer units sent, Captain." He turned to his executive officer Lieutenant Samuel Marks. "Keep me updated to the status of lunar orbital station salvage." Marks replied, "All 4 Dragon orbiters are working on it already. We should know if anything is recoverable within the day." As the Hope remained in orbit over the ruined former lunar base, its crew couldn't help but feel a mix of sorrow and determination. This was more than a salvage mission, it was a recovery of humanity's lost ambitions. For years Earth's telescopes had been turned on the skies, joined by thousands of amateurs looking for something. Beyond the extraordinary stellar objects they had turned up thousands of near-Earth objects. The Prospector's course would take it to visit several on its way to the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Navigator Olivia Garcia shook her head, a smile playing on her lips despite the stress. "I've found a promising candidate, Captain. Large asteroid, about 2 kilometers in diameter. Initial scans show high concentrations of rare earth elements. Engineer James Wilson looked up from his console, his usually calm demeanor tinged with worry. Preparing the drone engine now and launching. The little module moved the short distance to the rocky target and landed perfectly. A moment later telemetry came up. Brown's grin widened. Looks like we have contact. Telemetry up, engine online. Now it is just a waiting game to see if that little engine the Molnari helped us develop can move that rock to the Mars station, he worried to himself, not daring to say it aloud, and hope we have a Mars station by the time it gets there. With that done, the Prospector set back on its path towards the asteroid belt. Its crew knew that their success could mean the difference between Earth meeting the Busnar's demands or facing annihilation. Meanwhile, at the first Lagrange point, the Defiant opened a wormhole. Captain Michael Davis stood at the helm, his eyes scanning the star charts for any sign of the civilizations mentioned in Loxus and Molnari databases. "Captain," called out navigator Pedro Martinez, "wormhole is stable and I have put in the coordinates the Molnari and Loxus gave us." Davis's eyebrows rose. "Get us underway." Engineer Daniel Taylor shook his head. "Passive scanning detects nothing so far." Davis considered their options. Their mission was to gather intelligence and find potential allies, but every encounter carried the risk of meeting another hostile species. As the Defiant ventured into the wormhole on its course, the crew felt the weight of their responsibility. They were Earth's ambassadors to the unknown, carrying with them the hopes of their entire species. Back on Earth, in a secret facility deep beneath the Ural Mountains, representatives from China and Russia huddled around a strange, pulsating device. The artifact, recovered from a remote crash site years ago, had become more active since the first wormhole had been opened. "Do you know what this does yet?" the Chinese delegate asked, eyeing the alien technology warily. The Russian representative nodded firmly. "The US and other Western powers are not the only ones with access to extraterrestrial wrecks. We believe it is a communication device." The science team was able to activate it recently. As if in response to their debate, the device emitted a high-pitched whine. Suddenly, a holographic image flickered to life, revealing a being unlike anything they had ever seen. It was reptilian-looking. Through a hologram it was difficult to tell much. A softer scaled reptilian with obvious patterns on the scales. "Greetings, beings of Earth," the alien's voice resonated from the speakers. "We are the Myzoan. We have watched your world for some time, and now you are finally advanced enough to contact." The message played in a few languages as the Myzoan representative waited for a sign of recognition from the gathered audience. The Russian and even the Chinese AI would never be able to decipher the Myzoan language, but thankfully the Myzoan I could translate to Russian. The three representatives began speaking about mutual goals. The Myzoan was quick to promise aid on several levels while leaving what they would expect in return vague. As the alien began to outline its offer, the Axis leaders exchanged glances of excitement and apprehension. They were playing a dangerous game, but with the fate of the Earth hanging in the balance, what choice did they have? Aboard the HMS Audacity, Captain Emily Shaw pored over the latest intelligence reports. Their mission to seek out new civilizations had taken on a new urgency in the wake of the Busnar attack. "Captain," Lieutenant Richard Baker called out, his voice tense, "long-range sensors are picking up a Busnar patrol. They haven't detected us yet, but if we maintain course..." Shaw's mind raced through their options. They couldn't risk an encounter, not when they were Earth's last line of defense. But neither could they abandon their mission. "Alter course, Lieutenant," she ordered. "Put that moon between us and them. We'll use it as cover while we plan our next move. Worst case, plan on moving to this planet's Lagrange point and open a wormhole there. Hopefully with the planet and moon between us we can get out of here before they notice us." In the White House Situation Room, President Chambers received the latest updates from the various missions. The Hope had recovered technology from the lunar ruins. The Phoenix was going to take time to reach Mars even with the Loxus engines. The Prospector had identified several resource-rich asteroids and taken steps with some of the experimental technology it had on board. And the Defiant had made its way out of the system in search of hopefully more allies. It was progress, but was it enough? The Busnar had been big both in their timeline and in what they required to be sated. Meanwhile on Earth they were collecting as much material as they could, both for whatever the Busnar wanted demanded and for the plan to get out from under their thumb. As if sensing his thoughts, Dr. Reyes entered the room, her face flushed with excitement. "Mr. President, we've done it. The stealth prototype works. We can start outfitting our ships immediately." Chambers allowed himself a small smile. It wasn't a weapon, not yet, but it was a start. A way to level the playing field, even if just a little. Well done, Doctor. Begin production immediately. And get me Admiral Hayes. It's time we started planning for what comes after we meet the Busnar demands. As the room burst into activity, Chambers turned to look out the window at the clear blue sky. Somewhere up there, humanity's future was being forged in the crucible of crisis. They had been knocked down, but they weren't out. Not by a long shot. The Busnar, the Myzoans, and whatever other forces lurked in the vast expanse of space had underestimated humanity's resilience. It was a mistake they would soon come to regret. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the White House lawn, Chambers allowed himself to hope. They had a long way to go, but they had taken the first steps. From the ashes of their shattered dreams, a new, stronger humanity was rising. The galaxy had thrown down the gauntlet. And Earth, battered but unbroken, was ready to answer the challenge.